This episode of the Alpha Nerds podcast brought to you by Sponch. In a circular container comes out as a square. In a square container comes out as a triangle. We don't fucking know.
Welcome back to the Alpha Nerds podcast, the podcast that knows the true identity of the Count of Monte Cristo. I'm Bart.
And I'm Pete.
And every week we talk about TV show, movie, comic book, what have you, that begins with one letter of the alphabet. This week's is U!
USA! USA! USA!
Okay, so have you ever watched that show Ultimate Beastmaster?
Yeah. I was over at your house when we saw it.
No, they released season 2. So the thing they do in season 2 is they say USA a lot.
Oh, yeah.
I don't understand.
No, I was there for that.
You were there for that?
Yeah.
USA, USA. I don't know who says that. I've never heard that before in my life.
I've never heard before either.
I know they had hats made.
I definitely like it less.
USA. Like, there's a, like, USA. Like, who says, like, ooh, sa? I mean, I guess, it's weird.
It's...
Hi, folks.
Hello.
We do a radio show. We don't just talk amongst ourselves and put it on the internet. Because if we were crazy people, we'd do this by ourselves. But we're working in pairs, so we're not crazy.
Yeah, because crazy never comes in more than one.
No.
Nah.
So, like I said, every week we do... So every week we do one letter of the alphabet. This week's is U, and we have 5 honorable mentions each before we get to the meat of the podcast. So, Pete, why don't you kick us off? What's your 5?
All right, first off, I've got the Uncharted series.
Nice.
Which was brought to us by Naughty Dog, who is also making some other video games that I wish I could remember right now, but I can't, but whatever. Uncharted is a really fun game.
So, fun fact. So, the first game, the wetsuit he's wearing?
Yeah.
There's a logo on it that says Otzel.
Huh.
Because that's a reference to Ozzy the Otzel, which is what they were going to call Crash Bandicoot before they named him Crash.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, Uncharted series. Half platforming puzzle game, half cover-based shooter. And it's all voiced by Nolan North, who also has his claim to fame of voicing Deadpool in the Deadpool video game, as I mentioned last week. And it just comes together to make one just delicious pot pie of awesomeness.
It's really good. Like, Naughty Dog doesn't make bad games. They made the first 4 Crash games. So they made Crash 1, 2, and 3, which 1 weak, 2, 3 great. Crash Team Racing is super fun. And then they made the Jak and Daxter series, which I played 1 more times than I can count. But I've never touched 2 or 3.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun. If you like Tomb Raider and Indiana Jones, give it a try. After that, I have Uzumaki, which is not just Naruto's last name, but it's also the name of a story by Junji Ito, who's a famous manga horror artist and writer. And his shit is just creepy to look at.
Freaking
like,
right.
He draws unsettling things. He's also drawn stuff like Dissolving Classroom. With, oh, God damn it.
There was one I saw, I don't know if it was Junji Ito, I think it was, where it was a chicken man. Like, the dude's, like, blood got into a vat of this genetically modified soup, and then a, like, chicken man's face came out of it.
That's terrifying, but
Yeah,
also it just reminded me of Chickenfoot from Invader Zim. You remember Chickenfoot?
No, I
He
didn't
was
really watch
just
them.
stuck in a mascot suit.
I don't remember Chickenfoot. Well, I don't remember Invader Zim, really. Well, I know Invader Zim, but I didn't watch the show when it came on TV, so the only thing I've seen is my friends telling me about it.
So Uzumaki is a story about a town that, for whatever reason, just goes crazy with spirals. Like, kind of a weird elephant graveyards type instinct overtakes the citizens of this town when they see a spiral. Like, oh, well, I guess I'll go wander into the sea and just drown.
Weird.
And it is really weird. Junji Ito's not one to pull his punches when, it's like, hey, this might be pretty weird and off-putting. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, let's do it again.
Yeah. So after that, I have Unfriended. It was a horror movie released in, I think, 2016, and it sucks.
Yeah, I've heard of this.
It was awful. It was basically like, all right, the whole movie takes place over one Skype call, and it's like these four teenagers, I think, are just like Skyping with each other, and it's the anniversary after like one of their friends committed suicide, and then that friend's ghost comes back because it was technically like all their fault that they made her life such hell that she had to she saw no other way than to commit suicide, and so now she's just picking them off one by one. Great premise, except they do this all over a Skype call. Do you know what the fucking resolution is on Skype?
It's pretty bad.
It's bad. So imagine imagine somebody just basically retooling the Blair Witch movie, the old one, the stupid ass found footage one.
Oh, that one was great.
And the entire movie is just an hour and a half long version of the map argument.
Okay, yeah, the map part was not so great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bad movie. It's
good
terrible.
Good concept, just really, like, mixing technology with horror, like actual technology with horror, always comes out as kind of kitschy. Remember, what was the cell phone one? One Missed Call.
Yeah.
That thing?
Yeah. Because I like this version of reviewing things where it's like something out of 10, and I thought about this, and because it is terrible, but it's also terrible in a way that you don't expect it to be terrible, which makes it even worse, I give it a Sunday Church out of 10. No, sorry, Saturday Church. Saturday Church out of 10.
Saturday Church out of 10. Okay.
Yeah. So, after that, I have Up, Disney movie.
I would say Pixar's best.
Which manages to break your heart in the first 8 minutes.
Right? Like, right out of the gate.
Like, what the fuck, guys? Like, damn.
Yeah, then I'm pulling punches.
No. Just,
I would say my best Pixar movie, or my favorite Pixar movie, because you have that serious scene at the beginning. Well, it's not really at the beginning, because it starts off when they're kids. And then you get the build up, and then you see that.
Yeah.
Because they're in the theater watching, yeah. But right after that, when it's like back to him just in his house, like being old and kind of grumpy.
Yeah.
The scene where he's going down the stairs, because I think they play Carmen, the dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
Dun. That's hilarious.
That is good. But honestly, the most heartbreaking part of that movie was when Charles Muntz, after Carl and what's the kid's name? Let's just call him Kid.
Kid?
Carl.
I feel bad.
Carl and Kid get found by Carl's, at that point, idol, Charles Muntz, a famous adventurer, and he talks about like how long he's been in the jungle trying to find this fucking bird that like ruined his career because some scientists were like, "Oh, this thing can't exist. Look at the bones." And so he's like, fuck you. I'll bring back a live monster with blackjack and hookers.
Yeah, pretty much.
And so then he spent the rest of his life in the Amazon. But he was talking about how like whenever he's able to find it, it runs into this like stone maze that is like impossible to navigate once you're inside. And he talks about how he's lost so many dogs in there. And it was that fucking got me. I was like, dead dogs.
Oh.
Fuck you, Hollywood.
Russell.
That's right. Russell. And my fifth and final honorable mention is Uncle Ruckus.
Whoa, I'm not done with Up. I always thought you liked the Karen's Not My Mom line.
See, that was heartbreaking too, but like I saw that coming because it was like a fireside chat, and that's usually where like character development kind of gets portrayed a little bit.
Right, because it's a conversation.
Yeah, it's the fireside chat. But, yeah, like, you can see that coming. But when you just hear, like, oh, by the way, I've lost, like, a lot of dogs. But you see in his face that losing all those dogs has, like, weighed on him. Mm. And it just, like, it's one of the first villains you want to hug.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I want to say.
Right. So, fifth and final honorable mention is Uncle Ruckus from the Boondocks.
One of the best shows ever to be on television and one of the worst characters ever.
Oh, my God.
He's terrible.
He's terrible. He's hilarious. I know I shouldn't be laughing at it, but I am. Because he's funny. Because, like, he is... Okay. He is just so... Like, he's, like, the blackest person on the show. Tonally. Like, actually, like, skin tone. Like, darkest skin on that show. But he identifies as white, and, you know, he's just, like... He's got, like, frickin' Stockholm Syndrome for white people. It's weird.
Yeah.
And he compliments police officers, even if they're, like, doing that stereotypical police brutality thing. Like, they see Uncle Ruckus coming out of a car, and they're like, oh, he's got a gun! And he's like, oh, no, I don't have a gun, officer. Let me just take out my safety orange wallet and gun! And they just start beating the shit out of him. And the whole time they're beating him, he's like, that's excellent use of baton, officer! It's hilarious. I mean, it's hilarious in a way that I know I'm going to hell, but I've known I was going to hell since I was like 12, so whatever.
Well, every 12-year-old thinks they are. Okay, did you have a religious crisis around your teen years?
Religion and I do not get along very well. Like, I just got... If God exists, I would be yelling at him for a good 4 hours before taking a breath.
They made a Jim Carrey movie about that.
They did.
It actually ended well.
Yeah.
I was going to say it didn't end well, but no, it really did. He came out, like, super on top. He was great.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's it for my 5 honorable mentions. Bart, what do you got?
All right. So starting off, I have Ulysses, which is a book by an Irish writer called James Joyce. Have you ever heard of this book, Pete?
I've heard of it, but I've never read it.
It is the most nonsensical crap you will ever read in your entire life. It's, like, terrible. It is... It's one of those books where people are like, this is an example of true crafted writing. And I'm like, this is awful. I cannot read this. This is not English. If this was English, I feel bad for the guy who thought it was English.
Yeah, I've got a special hate boner for people who regard books being good just because they're old. Old does not equal good. Old means lucky enough to withstand the test of time because some schmuck was like, hey, this library is burning down. I'll grab this one.
Yeah, it's just awful. I'm trying to find a, good sample. Here we go. God, he said quietly, isn't the sea what algae calls it? A great sweet mother, the snot green sea, the scrotum tightening sea, Epinopa ponton. Daedalus the Greeks, I must teach you. You must read them in the original. Thalata, Thalata, she is our great sweet mother. Come and look. What the frick?
Huh.
Yeah, right, this book is maddening. I hear it's just the worst thing in the world. I've never sat down and read it. Clearly, I've never sat down and read it. I've also never sat down and hit my thumb with a hammer intentionally for 30 minutes, but you don't hurt yourself on purpose. But it's just weird. And it's this weirdly regarded book. But moving on to stuff that doesn't really make sense either. Ultimate Muscle.
Ultimate Muscle.
Okay, do you know what I'm talking about?
Nope.
Okay, it was an anime show that was on when we were kids. They put it on Fox, but it was out before that. It was anime luchador guys. But they all had weird heads and weird masks. One dude looked like a monkey. One dude had this like fringe on the top of his head. I remember him because we had a bunch of these little like rubber figures, but we had like 100 of them. Like we had dozens, but they were all different little wrestler guys. And then when the anime came out, we were in like 8th, 9th grade. It was like later in life. And I'm like, I remember this. I know that guy. I know that guy from that show. It's a stupid little anime, but it had this weird connection with me because I saw it before and then I saw it again. It's like Megas XLR because I like saw it.
Megas.
Because I saw it when they did like the promo thing for it, and then I saw it again when it was on Cartoon Network. I'm talking to my brother. I'm like, dude, I've seen this before. He's like, no, you haven't. The show just came out. I'm like, no, I've seen this. He's about to shoot an 8-ball out of his hand. And then he did. And my brother was like, we have seen this before.
Because you can prove that you've seen something before if you call something like that.
Right?
It's like, giant robot about to fire something out of its hand. What's he going to fire? Most people would say a rocket or a missile. Nope. Fucking 8-ball. Because it's Jersey.
Hey, everybody loves giant robots.
Everybody loves fucking giant robots in Jersey.
All right. Next on my list is I'm actually going to skip ahead to Underground Comedy Movie. Never seen it. Will never see it, but have never seen it in my entire life. But what can you tell me about it, Pete?
Well, I can say it's a movie. I can say it's got some comedy in it. And it's relatively unknown.
Yeah, I wonder why you guessed that last one. Do you remember the commercials? It will come on during Adult Swim for this thing.
See, I honestly can't remember it.
It was like the raunchiest movie ever. Had Joey Buttafuoco in it. Had Michael Clark Duncan in it. Had models on toilets. So it was directed and starring the ShamWow guy.
Huh.
This is what he did before he was the ShamWow guy. He did a stupid movie with Joey Buttafuoco. Who, for the kids who don't know who Joey Buttafuoco is, good.
Yeah, it's better that way.
See, do you remember the Family Guy bit where he was making fun of Letterman?
Which one?
She hated my tie. She hated my tie until I told her
it was made of 100% Buttafuoco fiber.
I remember asking my mom who Joey Buttafuoco was to try to understand that joke. She explained it to me. I then looked it up years later. I'm like, I had to have been missing something. It was just a terrible joke. It was supposed to be an example of a joke that doesn't make sense. But in my brain, I'm like, no. I have to be missing something. I have to be missing out on the joke. There's no joke.
Yeah.
But this movie, look up a trailer for this movie. It'll bring you back to that like mid 2000s. I'm watching E late at night. Or not E, gosh. I watched E late. No, E, because I watched The Soup a fair bit. Anyways.
That explains a lot.
Yeah, sad but true. Next is undergrads. Pete, what do you know about undergrads?
I showed you undergrads.
You did not show me undergrads. I saw undergrads when I was a kid.
Did you? Huh.
Yeah.
Well.
Because again,
Can you get more SpaghettiOs, guy? I like Triceratops.
So, for those of unaware, undergrads is one of those MTV late 90s, early 2000s animation boom shows. From Beavis and Butthead, Daria, The Max, The Head. Was that the dude with the giant head? I think it was the
That would be an
Head.
appropriate name.
Yeah, but undergrads is one of those, and it was about a bunch of slacker early college age kids. Surprising, I know, for MTV.
College freshmen, I think they were.
They were.
So, yeah, you had Nitz, who nobody ever knew his actual name. His nickname was just Nitz.
Yeah, the nerdy guy whose name I can't remember.
Gimpy.
You had Cal. Hey, guy.
Cal, the guy who, like, all the ladies went for because, like, he just had that perfect mix of
stupid,
nice looking, but, like, also, like, well-meaning but stupid, and weirdly soothing voice.
Beautiful and dumb.
Yeah, pretty much.
And Bruno, was that the other guy's name?
It
might have been something. He was
Rocco.
Rocco.
His name was Rocco.
He was your standard big beefy guy.
Yeah.
But I remember one time, Cal got a girl just walked up to Cal and gave him a number and like kissed him on the cheek and walked away. Rocco grabs it and lights it on fire in his hand. And Cal's like, "Did you need to do that?" "Yep." "Does that hurt?" "No." The episode where Gimpy is going against the other dude at his tech school.
Oh, because it's the whole Star Wars versus Star Trek thing.
Yeah.
And they settled it all with a big ass game of Quake.
Oh man, that was so 90s.
Oh man.
One of those, I can smell the flannel.
It's good. It's good.
Good fresh hit of grunge. But yeah, Undergrads is great. Like, but again, this is for my generation, not another generation.
One of the last episodes, they kept making a law of averages joke because they communicated with Gippy because he went to a different school. They communicated with him through Skype, and it was like a weird sort of version of Skype where, you know, you could just like pop in.
Yeah, it was like pre-Skype.
Yeah, and he would just like preface every conversation with, "Did somebody say my name?" And nobody said his name, except in the last episode, somebody mentioned Gimpy, and it's just, "Did somebody say my name? Whoa, how'd you do that?" Yeah, law of averages. And they basically kept making that joke through the whole last episode. Only lasted one season.
Did you ever see the, speaking of law of averages, did you ever see the episode of Seinfeld where, like, all their luck shifts? Elaine starts having bad luck, George starts having great luck, and Seinfeld is at a luck-like nexus where no matter what, he's kept at a perfect, like, level. No matter what happens to him, everything gets balanced out.
Yeah, he's just, like, homeostatic.
Yeah, so, like, he tells Elaine this. He's like, no matter what happens, like, it always corrects itself. She's like, give me $20. I want to test something. He's like, okay. So she grabs his $20 and just throws it out the window. And he's like, I could have given you a $5. I have a $5. And then conversation happens in the room. They have to leave. He puts on his jacket, puts his hand in his pocket. He's like, $20. And looks at it. Like, whoa. That show's great. Yeah, we didn't get a chance to talk about that with S, but that show's great. And then my last one is Ultraman.
Ultraman!
Dude, Ultraman's so sweet. So, Ultraman was a tonkatsu show. I think, no, tonkatsu is a type of food. Tokatsu? Yeah, tokatsu.
It was a big-ass robot versus big-ass monster show.
Think the last third of Power Rangers.
Yeah, of any Power Rangers episode.
Yeah. Where you just have guys in suits just punching each other. And it's one of the earliest ones. It wasn't the first, but it was one of the earliest.
Yeah, and it shows because, you know, the whole budget for Ultraman's costume was a full-face helmet and a silver bodysuit and some alterations to said bodysuit.
Yeah. So the mask they made, the first one, like, was all, like, crappy. So it looked, like, wrinkly and stuff. So he was supposed to be an alien. And then when they had more money and they could make the second mask, they made it, like, smoother. And people were like, oh, so he's, like, a robot or something? Because they were like, I don't get it. Like, how, like, is this just how this is?
Like, played off where it's like, yeah, he's a robot, but he's also from outer space, so technically he's an alien. Or maybe did they make him like an alien that was a robot? Or
no, he is
like he comes from a race of robots?
No, he's just an alien.
Oh.
He's an alien, but he can only inhabit your body for 3 minutes.
Yeah, 3 minutes per day.
Yeah. Weird, like, okay, I wonder if somebody, like, did it, like, okay, 11:59, or, like, 11:56, you do it, 1 minute break, midnight shifts, you hit the button again. Would it work? Or would you just be alive for, like, 2 seconds and then die?
No idea.
I've always wanted to test out those, because, like, Green Lantern, it's like, yeah, you gotta charge your ring just, like, when it runs out. Which I wonder if the Green Lanterns, if they get, like, the more advanced rings, if it's, like, smartphones, like, they have to charge them more often. The older Lanterns are just like, this thing used to last a full week. Like, shut up, Grandpa.
Like, dude, back in your day, the most complicated thing you made was a slingshot.
We can make 2 slingshots every day.
Go back to the deli, Grandpa.
I wish I had a deli near me.
Like, me too.
I wish I had like a good like deli sandwich shop. Like they're not common anymore. It's kind of sad. Well, because it's a sandwich shop. We call them sandwich shops. Like we don't call them Subways. We don't call them like actual delis.
Yeah.
We have classically trained sandwiches. We're talking about Seinfeld and sandwiches, but we should be talking about stuff that starts with the letter U.
Yeah.
So, Pete, why don't you kick us off? What's your topic for this week?
My topic for this week is a show called Ugly Americans. This show ran from 2010 to 2012. Very, like, short-lived, and it actually, like, the people behind it were aware that it wasn't getting renewed, so they kind of, like, wrapped up the show with whatever overarching plot there could be in their last episode of the second season.
Oh, that's good to them.
Now, you would think that a show like that wouldn't really have done super well in the ratings, and you might be right, because Comedy Central, in their infinite fucking wisdom, only ever aired this thing at like 11 o'clock at night on weekdays.
Yeah, that's bad.
Now if you go on, critic websites that weren't super effective back then, you'll see that it has a 97% on Rotten Tomatoes, a 4.8 on Google Play, and an 8 out of 10 on IMDb.
That's a shame more people didn't like it.
It really is. I mean, maybe if it had cleared that 99% on Rotten Tomatoes, it could have got renewed.
Bam! Success out of the gate.
Yeah. So, this show takes place in like sort of an alternate Earth where basically think if all of mythology was real, plus some just random ass shit that was thrown in for shits and giggles. Like man-birds. Yeah, your hearing is working fine. Man-birds.
Not Birdman. He's a film starring Michael Keaton and a character in Rick and Morty. This is Man-Birds, which is completely different.
Well, the Rick and Morty character is called Bird Person.
Oh, Bird Person. Gosh, where's my brain today?
Anyway, so it centers around this one guy named Mark Lilly, who is like, okay, you know how in sitcoms or any comedy you have one person playing the straight man? This is the straight man.
Like more boring and normal than everybody else? Like,
he tries to be funny, but his humor is so G-rated. It's not even G-rated. It's fucking Y-rated.
Y7, yeah.
Nah, it's not Y7, because even 7-year-olds are like, that was a bad joke. That was bad, and I am still drinking out of a juice box and asking permission to poop. So, anyway, he works at the Department of Integration, which is basically where creatures from other countries or planets or dimensions or planes of existence or whatever basically go to be like, hey, I want to live a normal life in New York. Because, New York is just the picture of normal.
Well, yeah, New York's your, immigration hub, as we've learned from the documentary film Men in Black.
It is. But if you're trying to be normal enough for New York, you're still too weird for a lot of other places.
Oh, you'll get kicked out of Wisconsin.
Yeah, Wisconsin is like, fuck you. We got ice fishing and corn. You're going to ruin it.
Go.
Department of Integration basically has these classes that teach these would-be prospective U.S. citizens all about American culture and things like that, just to help them get assimilated into being an ugly American. They never actually say the words "ugly Americans," but it's an apt name because we also have a lot of really, really weird species in this show. We got your typical mythology, so we got vampires, and we got werewolves, we got zombies, and were there witches? There are witches because they're wizards.
Yeah,
But then we also have, like, as I mentioned before, man-birds, which are human body, bird head, still able to fly.
Wait, no wings,
Even
but
though
still able to
there's
fly?
no wings, they just, like, flap their pudgy little arms.
So it's like Ra from Egyptian mythology.
Don't ever say that to anyone in Egypt, because you're gonna piss them off. Because these birds just fly around shitting on people. Human shit, by the way, not bird shit. And the only words they can say is "suck my balls."
So it's a bit more like Horus than Ra.
Uh,
You won't
yeah,
say that, I
yeah,
will.
yeah.
I don't.
Anyway.
I'm not afraid of ancient Egyptians.
So we also have it's close to an ent, except it's just a tree person. It's a human body, tree face.
Huh.
Like an actual tree growing out of the neck.
Oh, weird. Like you planted like an acorn in the neck and it just tree.
Yep.
Oh,
and that guy communicates just by shaking his leaves.
Nice.
And there's subtitles for this stuff. Let's see, what else?
So the animation style is like...
The animation style is really interesting. It's kind of reminiscent of Rob Zombie a little bit.
Right, it's really ugly. Maybe that's where they got the name from.
It's ugly, and that's also kind of due to the fact that a lot of the creators on this show are also people who worked on things like Super Jail.
Oh,
and
yeah.
who also went on to make things like Mr. Pickles.
I don't remember Mr.
Which
Pickles.
is like a Satan dog. I think I think it's still running on Adult Swim. Whatever.
Okay. But yeah, it always reminded me of... Remember in Aqua Teen, the guy who was the circus leader?
Yeah.
He was from Jupiter, and he's kind of just like weird. It always reminded me of that dude.
Kinda. Yeah.
Anyways, not to interrupt you, but I just want to touch on that.
Yeah, the animation style is actually, like, really interesting to... Well, I mean... interesting in the same way where it's like... It kind of hurts to look at, but I can't look away.
Yeah, like a car accident.
Kinda. But after a while, it just, it becomes the new normal, so you just kind of like, I'll roll with it. So... aside from Mark Lilly, there's a lot of really other interesting characters. There's his roommate, Randall Skeffington, who is voiced by the stand-up comedian Kurt Metzger. Hilarious, by the way, because it's basically the same person.
So if I remember right,
they didn't go up to Kurt Metzger and it's like, okay, here's your part. You're gonna play a zombie named Randall, and he's a roommate, but he's like, gotta play the wacky roommate angle. No, they didn't do that. They're like, Kurt, script, read.
So that's the same dude who plays Gene on Bob's Burgers, right?
No. Eugene Merman plays
Eugene Merman. Dang it. So who's Kurt Metzger?
It's a stand-up comedian. Plays Randall Skeffington. I told you! You never listen!
Thank goodness there's not a quiz after this.
Oh. I got some bad news for you.
Pete, no.
Okay, so Randall Skeffington's story is pretty interesting and funny and terrible all in one, because he's a zombie, but he's not like... He didn't really become a zombie the way you think. He was trying to hook up with this chick at a bar, and this chick was like, oh, sorry, I only date zombies. And so he's like, alright, I'll fucking go zombify myself. And that's the thing you can do in this alternate America. Sorry, bump the mic. And that's the thing you can do in this alternate America. You want to be a vampire? Cool, we got clinics that'll just like, they'll influx the vampire curse into you, and, then, follow-up appointments later when your fangs start coming in. That's an actual thing. That's an actual thing in the show. And I actually really dig that. Where it's like, wow, they actually have a whole system for people who want to be a different whole species. That's pretty cool.
Nice. Feel bad for the bird people.
Well, the bird people aren't really sentient. They're like a whole race themselves, so it's like, meh. I'm sure there can be like a vampire bird person, but whatever.
Well, I'm thinking, like, could you, like, walk into the clinic and, like, I don't want this responsibility anymore. You have to make me a bird person. It's like, I'm sorry, we can't make you a man bird. It's like, no, you don't understand. I'm at my wit's end. So either I'm going to walk into the vampire clinic and say, eat up, boys, or you're going to make me a man bird. And then 5 minutes later, he's like,
I mean, there are certain things you can do. Like, this universe, like, has its own rules and, like, its own limitations, which, as a sci-fi fanboy, I fucking love. I eat that shit with a spoon.
we love rules.
We love rules, we love limitations, and that's why Doctor Who's been pissing me off.
Yeah.
Just... Peter Capaldi, I know it's not your fault, but you're the face of the Doctor where this is happening, so... Kinda want to slap you.
I wouldn't slap Peter Capaldi. That man is very angry.
He's got attack eyebrows! So angry. He could scowl me into submission. Alright, so Randall goes to zombify himself, and he does, and they, like, finds that one chick again, and she's like, oh, sorry, I'm actually into wizards now. And then he's just sitting there, like, drinking a beer, like, crap! Because there's no way back from this. Like, there's no longer being a zombie. It's just, you're a fucking zombie now. And that comes with whole other things that, you know, he didn't plan for, but he's just kind of like, I'll just roll with it, whatever, I don't give a shit. And I think we can all relate to that attitude so many times, like, through adult life, where it's like, whatever, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
And so, you know, he's got to deal with things like craving human flesh, because that's a thing. And you curb that by eating a human flesh substitute called flesh toast. And other such things. Basically like the egg beaters of human body parts, like soy brain, shit like that.
Yeah.
And he actually has to talk to, like, sort of like a zombie AA sponsor whenever he's got a craving for actual human flesh.
Nice.
And then, like, he's actually on the phone with his sponsor, and it's like, what? How would I? It's like, hey man, I don't know. I feel like I'm slipping. I mean, my roommate's just sitting here, laying down, because I drugged him. Yeah. Roofies in his chocolate milk. Yeah, I know. Chocolate milk. A grown man. And he's like, how would I do it? Well, it's not like I really thought about it. Meanwhile, he's opening up a suitcase full of medical tools. But I guess I would start by making an incision at the base of the spine, draining the fluid to make sort of, you know, like a base. And, are you masturbating to this? Dude, you are the worst sponsor!
So, like, it's fair to say this dude's, like, your favorite character.
Probably.
Oh, yeah.
Although there are a lot of really great characters. Randall's probably my favorite. But there's a couple more I want to talk about. Callie Maggotbone, who is Mark's boss / really in control girlfriend.
She's like the businesswoman from Futurama.
Kind of, yeah. The whole weird romantic relationship where somebody's just got somebody else just under their thumb.
Oh, this is odd, but it works for them. Apparently.
So she is like she's probably like the second in command at the Department of Integration, and her whole job is basically just like meeting the bottom line. And that comes in real handy because she's a succubus, and, you know, she is like she's the daughter of the current devil, which they actually explain, like, why the devil isn't even Lucifer anymore.
Oh, yeah? Is it like a transitional thing? Or that's not important.
But, yeah, so she's like the daughter of the current devil, so she doesn't have any of those, like, pesky things like a sense of guilt or sympathy or empathy or anything like that. So it's basically like, well, I guess we'll just have to shut down this service that a lot of people need. Oh, well.
Makes her... She's a good fit for her job. It's important to find out where you like...
She's a good bureaucrat.
Yeah.
So, but it's actually really, really, really funny in some ways, like the way that she and Mark get together. Let's see. There's one scene where she and Mark are laying in his bed, and she's just like, so you want to go again? And he's like, we just did it 4 times. I need a break. And she's like, oh, come on. You wouldn't dress like that if you didn't want it. I'm naked because you burned off my clothes. I will take what's mine! So, yeah. Also, there's one episode where she actually switches genders for an episode, and her male gender voice is Patrick Warburton.
Hey,
Or no, not Patrick Warburton. John Benjamin.
I'm still okay with this.
Yeah, it's actually really, really hilarious because she's still in a relationship with Mark, but now she's got a dick, and Mark is just kind of like constantly dealing with that, where it's like he's trying to be all like, you know what, I support this, but I don't know if when you're trying to be supportive, but, this was, literally sprung on him last minute. Literally, he saw her one day, and then the next day, she came back, tall, statuesque male.
Yeah, at least something pretty to look at.
Yeah, and with John Benjamin's voice. You could do worse.
Yeah. It's basically Archer.
Anyway. One of the last characters I want to talk about is Leonard Powers. And this guy is a wizard. He is an ancient wizard, alive during the Arthurian times wizard.
Druid style?
Kind of. But he is, sort of just trying to maintain his existence in a modern world. So he works as Mark's sort of co-worker / assistant, but he is also a mess of a person. Just terrible. Cannot do the most basic shit. Can't even, manage to go through a day completely sober.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Huh.
And the funniest part about Leonard Powers, though, is kind of just the wizardy references. There's one day where he shows up to work completely hungover, and he's wearing one of those, pointy Fantasia magic hats,
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh, God. And he takes off the hat and throws up into it and then puts it right back on his head with no mess whatsoever. And, he sees, Mark kind of, looking at him like this, and he's like, magic.
There's somebody whose coffee cup just filled up, and they're like,
probably. That would be great. But, and there's, let's see. He's just got stories from, being as old as he is. He's talking to this, haunted house, because apparently he has to sell a house for some reason. I don't fucking know.
Sitcom.
He's talking to this haunted house, and the house is talking to him back, and, it's one of those, poltergeist situations where, items are floating around and shit. And so they're having, lunch, and the house, cuts a slice of cake for him because they're basically, just dishing about, doing shit. And it's like, how would you feel if someone cut a hole in the roof of your being to, quote, let a little more light in, end quote. And he's just sitting there preach into the choir, sister. And he just taps his head. I still think twice before discussing a sun-centric solar system in a public setting.
Nice.
So, trepanning joke to anybody who missed that.
Trepanning is fun for kids.
Knife wrench! Anyway, yeah, that's where they would just cut a circular piece of your skull out.
To release the demons.
To release the demons and let in the light of God.
Which,
because that's how light works.
Well,
Goes right through your skin.
It happens in, like, every civilization. And it actually is, it relieves, like, internal fluid, because, like, we didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, back when, like, when people had, what was it, like, is an aneurysm when fluid kind of collects?
Honestly, don't know. I should know this.
Anyway, yeah, it, like, there's a thing where fluid kind of, like, collects in the brain and it results in some, like, really just batshit insane behavior, like rabid dog level shit.
Yeah.
So they just kind of release that pressure and it's like, oh, finally. Now may I please have that apple I've been asking for 2 days?
What's an apple?
I don't know! So, that's a very short summary of Ugly Americans, but every episode kind of centers around helping, like, one particular case to assimilate into society. And there's a whole lot of different characters that I didn't get to talk about because I'm already kind of going into Bart's time.
Not really.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you've been like 20 minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, there's also Frank Grimes, who's like the chief of security at the Department of Immigration, and he's just a fucking nutcase.
Wait, no, Frank Grimes was on The Simpsons. Or is it the same dude?
Different dude, same name.
Huh. Weird.
Although they just call him Grimes.
Okay.
But
they don't call him Grimy.
Now I'm just thinking of the whole, like, well, I don't need safety gloves because I'm Homer Simpson. It's like, Grimy, you okay? I'm better than okay. I'm Homer Simpson. You wish.
But yeah, so Grimes.
Yeah. Hilarious because he's kind of like the whole loose cannon cop sort of thing, and he knows that he's trying to be a loose cannon cop. And so, you know, he's shaking down immigrants for their ID and papers and everything like that, just like itching for a reason to deport them. And I think in the very first episode, he's like shaking down a squid, like a giant squid person.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a fucking sentient squid. And,
on land?
Well, they got him in a little aquarium tank.
This makes sense now. Okay, go on. Continue.
Yeah. And so Mark shows up. It's like, all right, back off. And he, like, pulls a piece of paper out of the aquarium. It's like, that is a U.S. citizen. And Grimes is all like, foiled again. And Mark is, like, taking the aquarium down the pier, because that's where they are. They're just on a pier. It's like, I know they all look the same to you, Grimes, but I happen to go to this squid's bar mitzvah. And he spills the aquarium, but, like, the squid's still on the pier. And so he just, like, kicks him into the water. L'chaim!
That's awesome.
It's so full of, like, dry and also dark humor. And it's just so great.
So, do you have any, like, last-minute shout-out bits or characters before you wrap this up?
There was another episode where they get... Okay, back to tree people. There's also another kind of tree people where it's literally just trees with faces.
Okay, so that's like your straight-up ents.
Well, except they don't move.
So like
they're straight-up trees. They're like really bad ents.
It's like the dudes from Aqua Teen who like...
Yeah, like the trees, like the that court of trees.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, in that episode, one of my favorite bits from Randall was just like, it's like, oh, you want to talk about sexual exploration? Let me tell you about this. There's this one time I thought I was hooking up with a robot. Turns out, I was just fucking a toaster. I mean, I got a million stories like that, dude. And then Mark is just like, hold that thought. We're going out. Also, remind me to buy a new toaster. And then he goes into this long tirade about it's like, well, if we're gonna work the clubs together, you should probably learn about my sexual history. And then it goes into like one of those montage things where it's like he's just describing this awful, awful, terrible shit, and then it all ends with, and anyway, that's how my crabs got chlamydia. Oh, also my dick fell off yesterday, so that's it.
No, why that got me so good.
It's just the fact that he's being so nonchalant about it. It's just, oh, and also my dick fell off yesterday.
I think it's that. So, like, well, okay, I know there's rules of the universe that doesn't really apply, and they may not have even thought about it. Can he reattach stuff, or is it once it's off, it's kind of just gone?
See, it's actually interesting, because when it came to, like, limbs, he had to, like, go to basically a zombie body shop, and, yeah, it's kind of a lot like a car body shop, but, like, he had to actually get new limbs grafted on. Meanwhile, his dick is a whole sentient being that he had to negotiate with to have put back on his body. Because it turns out his dick didn't fall off, it ran away. It's like, well, what do you remember the last thing doing with your penis? Okay, well, dip, it's like, he's reading off a list. Dip penis in ink when I couldn't find a pen. Made penis watch Bride Wars. Penis did not like that at all. And hog slammed that elephant lady 6 ways from Sunday.
Again, does it go in the background? I need you to say that again.
Made penis watch Bride Wars. Penis did not like that at all. So, yeah.
So we're back, folks. Sorry about that. I just finished changing my pants. So my subject for this week is Universal Monsters.
Yay!
So,
unless you were talking about the newest ones, in which case, boo!
So as we used to do back in the day, in the olden times, we have a little quiz for Pete. Pete, how many of the, like, primary Universal monsters can you name?
Okay, well, are we talking, like, absolutely primary, or are we just, like, naming as many as I can?
Like the, like, classic ones from, like, the 30s and 40s.
Okay, so we got Dracula, Wolfman, Frankenstein, Invisible Man, what else? I want to say Creature from the Black Lagoon.
That counts.
Was the Fly part of that?
No, he wasn't. That was somebody else. I don't know who that was.
Then, yeah, I think that's about all I got.
You missed the Mummy.
Oh, right, the Mummy.
Yeah, but you hit, like, just about all of them. So everybody's kind of familiar with the Universal monsters. They're the monsters from classic literature, mainly, who moved over to... They got movies made out of them in the 30s and 40s, and then they've now just, like, soaked into, like, American horror. It's great. I love it. Because every Halloween you're going to see your Frankensteins, your Mummies, your Draculas, your Wolfmans.
Well, not anymore.
But you see them on, like, posters and stuff.
You see Left Shark.
I don't live in a college area, so I didn't see Left Shark that year. But
you see Left Shark, you see Ghostbusters. Not to knock Ghostbusters, but we just don't see monsters as much.
Yeah, not really. Well, because we have more superheroes. We have more hero characters rather than the monster characters.
Like, Halloween's supposed to try and scare people, damn it.
Yeah, back when we were kids, like, you had the Power Ranger costumes.
That's true.
Maybe that's where it started. Was like the like.
Maybe I do remember being the Blue Ranger.
I never was. Blue Ranger was my favorite though, which I'm guessing because I was a white kid with glasses and brown hair.
I liked it because his whole shtick was just being the smart one. And I was like, why is he not the leader if he's the smart one?
He is blue. It's like Leonardo. Come on now.
Yeah, whatever.
So Universal's monster thing kind of started off back in 1923. There's a movie called Hunchback of Notre Dame, and it starred Lon Chaney. Do you know anything about Lon Chaney?
Nope.
So Lon Chaney was an actor back in like the early 20s, and his shtick was you didn't have like a studio's makeup department. He did his own. So he built it up with like latex and foam and or like a nose putty and like all this stuff to like do his own makeup for it.
Huh.
So he made this like really ugly hunchback. And then 2 years later, he made a movie called The Phantom of the Opera. Where he wore a ball cap, he had a messed up face for the nose, because you know how the nose is kind of like a bat, it's like up.
Yeah.
He took piano wire and held his nose up for a week.
That poor guy.
A week, I think, but like held it up to where it would get in like that shape, and then like did the rest of the makeup himself. Which
Good
that
Lord.
Right, that makeup is freaky deaky.
Yeah.
It's so freaky. But like when I think of Universal Monsters, like if I showed somebody a picture of that, they'd be like, "Oh, Phantom of the Opera." And now they just have a handsome man with messed up half of his face. It's not like just terrible, terrible looking thing like that. So 6 years after that, you have 1931, you have Dracula.
Now, was this Dracula or was this Nosferatu?
This was Dracula. So Nosferatu was another production company. So what happened was they made Nosferatu. Bram Stoker's family took them to court and was like, "This is Dracula." And the court was like, "This is definitely Dracula." And so they lost the rights. And so when Universal saw it, it was like, I mean, Nosferatu is still a good movie, so why don't we just make it again, just like legally? So they did. And they actually made it so Universal filmed it at the same time as the Spanish version on the exact same sets.
Huh.
So if you buy one of the like older versions of the DVDs, you can find like it has the Spanish version on the two. And the Spanish version's awesome because like it's all in Spanish. Like, it's all in Spanish because it's the Spanish version because it's in Spanish. But you're like, there's a scene where Dracula comes out from behind, and there's like in the English version, it's like a jump cut up to his face and then back down to where Renfield is. In the Spanish version, there's this dramatic pan all the way up the stairs and up to Dracula being like, oh, cool. And so the guy who played Dracula, Bela Lugosi, that's pretty much what he's known for. He did a bunch of horror movies back then. And he is Hungarian. Because when Bram Stoker wrote the novel, Transylvania was part of Hungary, not Romania. Right? Like, I never would have known that. And all the like extras they got to play the village people were Hungarian. And all the signs were in Hungarian.
Huh.
Crazy. It's really cool. But this is your, like, if you think of Dracula, what do you have? You have slick back, black hair, you have a widow's peak, you have a nice suit with a big cloak, big old amulet.
Yep.
And the amulet got added in this version of it, in the 1931 version. But this is your, like, if you tell somebody, draw Dracula, they're not going to draw you Dracula from anything else. They're going to draw it from this.
They might draw it from Hotel Transylvania.
Which looks exactly like this one.
Does he have an amulet? I can't remember.
I think he does. I can't remember.
I'm actually going to Google it now, so you're going to hear some tapping.
Oh.
He does not have an amulet.
Ah. Okay, I thought he did.
He's got, like, kind of one of those, like, three-piece suit sort of things where it's, like, puffy shirt coming out of the front of a suit.
Yeah.
But no amulet.
Okay, and before we move on for Dracula, I have a bad joke to make.
And what's that?
Why is Dracula so much worse when he's in his wolf form?
Why?
Because his bark is worse than his bite.
6 hour drive, Bart. You got 6 hours to get ready for a punch in the face.
So that was like February of 1931. 6 months later, just 6 months, they dropped Frankenstein.
Nice.
Stars Boris Karloff. This is your classic Frankenstein. Big, square head, black hair, like loose-fitting suit. Like, it's like a purple Don Juan suit with a black, like, jumper underneath. And the, like, neck bolts, like, the full kit and caboodle.
Nice.
So the makeup was actually designed by a dude called Jack Pierce. You know anything about Jack Pierce?
The name rings a bell, but I can't place it right now.
He did look up a picture of him, like, in a little bit, but Jack Pierce looks like a mad scientist. He looks like this crazy, insane man who's just putting these things together. And so what he did was, when he did the makeup on Boris Karloff's head, he didn't have a sculpt. He didn't have like a latex headpiece like you would do nowadays and put that on top of it. What he did was he used cotton and some other stuff, and he built it up. He basically just sculpted a new headpiece every single day they shot.
Huh.
And it took like 4 hours to do it.
Damn.
He would just build it up and it, like, get it because what color is Frankenstein?
Sort of a light blue, sort of.
Blue?
Or it's sort of like, it's like a bluish green.
Green. Frankenstein's green.
Decomposed. Well, it depends on which iteration, damn it.
Frankenstein's always green. You're still looking at that Hotel Transylvania picture, aren't you?
I looked at it and imprinted it in my brain.
But
I'm not looking at it right now, but it's stuck there, and all I can hear is Kevin James's voice coming out of it.
Just watch out for fire. Fire back.
Fire back.
I love that.
It's the fact that he stares off into the distance, just like
memories.
Going slightly PTSD about it. Just stay away from fire. Fire bad.
But Frankenstein's green. The reason why is because the makeup that they put on Boris Karloff was green. They didn't want him to look green. They wanted him to look paler than everybody else, and how they got that was doing the green. Because Jack Pierce is a freaking, like, genius.
Nice.
So, we're all familiar with the, like, there's a scene where they burn down the windmill, and there's a scene where he's talking with a little girl at the pond, and she's teaching him to throw the flowers in. He's like, oh, you throw pretty things in the pond. And then he just throws the girl in the pond because he's like, this is what you do. So, what's the name of Frankenstein's assistant?
Igor.
It's not in that movie.
Really?
Yeah, it's a guy named Fritz.
Fritz.
He was the same dude who, like, scared away the monster with fire and all that stuff until the monster...
I like Fritz better than Igor.
Yeah. Fritz
I
works.
don't know. Maybe they used Igor because it, like, has more of a evil intonation, so it's kind of like, oh, we're trying to paint Frankenstein as being evil, sort of. And
well...
What wasn't Frankenstein based on Mary Shelley's boyfriend, Lord Byron?
I don't know. No, it's based on a dream she had.
Are you sure? Because I'm pretty sure, like, she was using Dr. Frankenstein basically just to be like, look what a fucking asshole this guy is.
Possibly.
Because it was never a matter of like, oh, man should never play God. It's like, no, if man does some huge shit, man should not think like, oh, I'll just ignore it and it'll go away. No, this is your responsibility now. Fucking deal with it.
Possibly. But, so Fritz, like, he was in the first one, and then Igor actually does show up in the later ones. I think it's not House of Frankenstein, it's something else. But there's Igor and Frankenstein's trying to, like, get rid of the monster. I think he's trying to do the thing they do in Young Frankenstein where they, like, trade parts of their brains.
Yeah.
To, like, level them out. But then Igor tricked him and messed with the machine, so now it just switched bodies. So now he's in control of the monster's body. But Dr. Frankenstein blinded the monster somehow, and that's where we get the arms out stiff, like, reaching around. It's not that the monster ever did that in the actual version, it's that he was supposed to be blind, and he's, like, blindly grabbing and stuff.
Huh.
Cool, right?
It is cool.
So then, something like 4 months later, we get another, like, historic monster. We get the Mummy.
The Mummy. Also
played by Boris Karloff. Boris Karloff's huge, by the way. Like, he's not a small man.
Yeah.
It was story of Egyptologists going, stealing stuff, and then a mummy coming alive and trying to, like, grab them. The makeup in that's, like, really good to make him look, like, old and haggard. And this is another...
mummies. Sorry, go ahead.
This is another thing for Frankenstein. What they did was he had like a dental like implant in, but it was like an old school one where like they'd make it like attach it to a plate and you just put the whole thing in. Think of the dude from Skyfall.
Oh.
So Boris Karloff had that. So when he played the monster, they took that out to where it would give him like a dent in his face. Crazy, right?
It is.
So, and then he goes on to play the Mummy, and the Mummy is like, I've never seen the actual Mummy film. I have it, but think of all the, like, mummies weren't really scary before this, I don't think. But now it's like, you're being chased by a mummy, and mummies are frightening again.
Yeah, I never quite understood. I mean, at least until, like, later movies when they showed mummies having, like, superpowers.
Yeah, that was the 1999 version with everybody's favorite caveman, Brendan Fraser.
I love Brendan Fraser.
Dude, Brendan Fraser's great.
He's so good.
Because we grew up in the, like, Brendan Fraser renaissance. You have
we did.
Encino Man, Blast to the Past. He did a dramatic movie with Ian McKellen. I wanted to check it out, but I never got a chance.
But, yeah, we also had The Mummy, and unfortunately, past Mummy movies after that.
Number 2 was good.
The Return was okay.
Okay.
The fucking, what was it? The Dragon Emperor. Oh, my God.
I never watched that one.
Okay, but there were a couple of scenes from the Dragon Emperor that were actually, like, really good. Like, basically Brendan Fraser being Brendan Fraser, because he's trying to fly fish, and he's, like, reading a book, and he's like, 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock. And the whole time, like, he's trying to fly fish, and then he ends up, like, snatching the hook in his neck, and he gets pissed off, takes out his gun, and just starts shooting at the water.
Nice.
And then he brings the fish home, and, like, they're eating it, and it's like, and then somebody chomps on a bullet, and it's like, ah! Really? You went fishing, did you?
The dude that they got to play his, like, other guy, or the brother of his wife, like, that guy was great, too.
Yeah.
But, my favorite line from The Mummy 2 is when they're running out of the museum, and, like, the wife's, gosh, I can't remember that character. Well, I can't, it's, Evie. Evie, like, shuts the doors, then puts the bench in front of it, and he's like, honey, they don't use doors. And then they, like, boosh through the wall and chase after him.
Yeah, it's great.
Oh, man. Come back, Brendan Fraser. We missed you from Scrubs.
We do. Yeah.
He was
also in Looney Tunes Back in Action.
Yes, he was. He was also in G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra as one of the trainers because his kids like G.I. Joe.
Ah, that's awesome.
Yeah, Brendan Fraser's kind of cool like that. I always love when actors will take roles for their kids. It reminds me of Raul Julia.
He was also in a movie called Inkheart. I still haven't gotten around to watching that one.
No, I want to watch that one too. That one looked really good.
Yeah, I can't exactly tell what it's about, but it looked interesting enough.
It's one of those, like, you read from the book comes alive things. Andy Serkis is in it, like, without, like, his face. Amazing. It's one of those, Andy Serkis is in it. No. He's, like, actually there.
And then people are like, what?
He can't be real. Anyways.
He can't be real. He's Gollum.
So moving on from that, the next year after that, because Universal's made, like, other monster movies in between these, but I'm trying to hit the, like, big names, like the introduction of Dracula's and Frankenstein's and mummies, and this one, 1933, is Claude Rains playing the Invisible Man, who has one of my favorite, like, head, like, it's not makeup, but it's like the apparatus, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he has, like, the bandages around it with, like, the, like, creepy goggles and the nose that sticks out, like, just too far.
Yeah.
Ah, so good. And that's a good, like, story, too.
Yeah. It really is.
It's just like, I found this, like, formula, and, well, drove me a little bit nuts, but that's fine, because it's not going to bother me too much. Start scratching the screen.
It's fine.
That also got a kind of sort of remake with Hollow Man, except Hollow Man wasn't great.
Ugh, Hollow Man. God.
I don't hate that movie. It just wasn't good enough for it just missed the mark on a like couple bits. Like, but the CGI was pretty good for the time.
Movie with the same exact plot that was actually way better. Fucking Ghost Shark.
Okay.
It is what it sounds like.
Yeah, you gotta love when it's exactly what it says on the tin. Pete, can you name another movie that Claude Rains was in?
It's killing me, but I don't think I can.
He was in a remake of Phantom of the Opera, but that's not that important. He was Louis in Casablanca.
Really?
Yes, he was.
That was Claude Rains?
That's Claude Rains.
That was Claude Rains!
Thank you, Pete. Moving on from that, 1935, Bride of Frankenstein.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
And
okay, real quick, describe the bride.
Okay. Regular looking woman, Marge Simpson hair.
Yep.
And like lightning bolt sort of thing that just lightning bolt streak that went up the hair so it was white against black. Inspired Freakazoid's hair from the cartoon series.
Really?
Yep.
Nice. I mean, I'd see it, but yeah. So I think they actually did for her the like line around the throat with the stitches. Like, you know what I'm talking about?
Where they showed where the body parts were connected.
I think that was her. I gotta check out another picture of it. But like that movie's good. That movie had, I think, Bela Lugosi playing the monster. It wasn't Boris Karloff. Boris Karloff stopped playing the monster after a while.
That sounds about right. And it's actually interesting. Like, I don't know how many people ever actually like read the story Frankenstein, but it's like the Bride of Frankenstein's in there too, because you know there's at one point where the Frankenstein's monster can articulate his thoughts really well, and he's just like, you know what, dude, you created me, and I'm the only one, and I ain't got nothing to fuck. Now, obviously, Mary Shelley was much more poetic than that, talking about, like, you know, being able to love another being and such, but we can all relate to, I ain't got nothing to fuck.
Okay, I was wrong. It is Boris Karloff. It was Boris Karloff who didn't have nothing.
Boris Karloff ain't got nothing to fuck. Damn shame.
But yeah, I never read the book. Just because I read one of those like wrap-up storybooks when I was a kid, where it was like it would touch on the major points of the book and the rest of the page would just be like cool mysteries about like actual monsters, stuff like that.
Yeah,
like grave robbers.
Here's one thing I really love about like those classic horror stories. The whole message behind them was basically just a criticism of society. So, you know, we see fucking movies and TV shows like Black Mirror and fucking Saw and everything like that. It's like, oh, it's such a witty criticism of society. It's like, fuck you. People did this with like half of our current vocabulary tied behind their back.
Right.
And, you know, praise be to Mary Shelley, the queen mother of all sci-fi.
Pretty much. That's another thing that we should have talked about with Frankenstein. So the scene where Frankenstein like lifts the body and there's a lightning bolt and all that, none of that is in the book. You know this.
Yeah. No.
It was all just like mixing chemicals in a lab to make it.
Yeah.
But
well, and like adding a little bit of electricity, just, you know, get like sort of a jolt, because there's a certain amount of science into it where it's like, you know, if you shove a gigawatt of juice up a stiff's ass, then yeah, it's gonna spasm.
Until it starts smoking. And then you have to say, put that out, young man. Put that out. Put that out. He can't hear me. Put it out. Put it out. You attach the ears, right? Put it.
Don't you ignore me like that. You are grounded.
But
he's on fire.
No, he's electrical, grounded. But anyways, so Bride of Frankenstein, it has one of my like favorite like moments from the movies. So when Frankenstein like needs to work on the like wife monster, there's this other scientist who's helping him, is like, I can push you harder. And he rigs up his heart to where if he stops working on the monster, his heart stops and he will die.
Ha.
To mentally push him further. And sometimes I've been working on something and I'm like, I need this hooked up to me. I need that little like shove to get me there.
You know what's also good for, getting a good day's work out of yourself? Taking a nap.
So like the exact
Just
opposite.
take a nap.
Bit different.
I mean, better than like doing a whole fucking speed thing.
If I go below 80 miles an hour, my heart explodes, which it doesn't know, but somehow does. Anyways, so moving on. 1941, we have everybody's favorite Wolfman.
Yeah.
So I want you to imagine, remember how earlier I was saying he didn't make latex masks and put them on? He like built it up slowly over time.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that with your whole head and your hands.
Fuck that.
So the actor who played the Wolfman, whose name is Lon Chaney Jr., who is the son of Lon Chaney, the guy who was the Phantom of the Opera, did not like this man very much. He didn't like Jack Pierce. Wonder why, but he didn't.
Can't imagine why.
And they used yak hair for it.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so now you're like sticky and sweaty and just hot all day, because if we take it off you, that's 4 hours.
Why does it smell like if a shit is sweating?
But that's your Wolfman. And Claude Rains is actually in the Wolfman too.
Nice.
Because he plays the Wolfman's dad, who kills the Wolfman at the end, even though the rest of the movies after that kind of just ignore it. Which, this is another, like, strange thing about this whole, like, combined universe that these things had, is they would do crossover movies, where you'd have, like, Frankenstein versus the Wolfman, House of Dracula, where they're all in it, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Frankenstein and Dracula meet Abbott and Costello, I think that was one.
I know that the Mummy gave Abbott and Costello the business.
Yes, they did. But, like, they had all these crossover movies, but none of the movies really took consideration of how the last one ended. So, like, at the end of... So, Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. Wolfman should be dead. Frankenstein should be burned. But Wolfman actually finds Frankenstein in some ice wearing this weird fuzzy vest thing. It's dumb. But it's where there was a crossover and, like, a shared world, even though there wasn't. Because back in the day, you didn't have VCRs. Like, you wouldn't, like, go out and, ooh, the new movie's coming out. Let's marathon the old ones. And Marvel's kind of taking better advantage of that.
Yeah.
Where things are, like, very connected and very, like, integrated into each other. It's pretty good.
Although trying to find, like, the right viewing order is, like, a little sketchy.
It's not too bad now, because, I mean, everybody's made their own lists.
Yeah, but still, it's like, nah.
Yeah.
Blah. I'm not including Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in that at all.
Yeah. So yeah, Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, and just the Wolfman in general. Like, we have Wolfmen now, but they're always like, they're not like, so in the Wolfman, he's like sitting in a chair and he's like, ah, and then leans down and like comes up and he's all wolfy. We're never going to see that again. We're going to see the American Werewolf in London, or, we're going to see the underworld, like, ripping off flesh, like, growing, writhing on the ground, of course, butt naked.
The Van Helsing transformation.
Yep.
I think that's probably, like, one of my favorite ones, because your werewolf form, oddly enough, had, like, the same hairstyle that you do.
Yeah. Which... Like,
Hugh Jackman's hair was, like, the same in his wolf form. It was pretty cool. I like that. I don't know why. It was neat.
It's a neat little thing. So I always thought that the Frankenstein in that movie looked like Peter Frank from Young Frankenstein.
You mean Peter Boyle?
Peter Boyle. I always thought that the Frankenstein in that looked like Peter Boyle.
Kind of, yeah.
I think the bald.
I think they were trying to like go with that a little bit. Like, they were probably like trying to find a good Frankenstein reference to work off of, but one that didn't seem so cookie cutter, copy paste.
Yeah, which that movie was actually made by Universal Studios. So
Yeah, yeah.
all things, behold the interconnectedness of all things.
Also, Universal Studios made Dracula Dead, loving it. Also, Mel Brooks movie.
Oh, so good.
Love that one so much.
And then our last monster to talk about is 1954, Creature from the Black Lagoon, which I actually looked this up because I'm like 54, like that had to be in color. It wasn't. One of the later ones was, but that first one was still black and white.
Huh.
And Creature from the Black Lagoon, just big, slimy fish man. The Gill Man is his actual name.
Huh. That's weird.
This is my friend, Gill
Sort
Man.
of like, is it sort of like a story about like pretty girl comes to a lagoon and then this thing sees her and then it's like, I'm gonna tap that.
Pretty much, yeah.
With my fish dick. You like fish dicks?
So there's
everybody likes fish dicks.
Stop. There's a scene
Never.
where it's the like kidnapping scene of the girl. You can look it up on YouTube. It's awful because he like jumps up on the boat, is like, yep, and then just like jumps off the side as like the hero guy climbs up the other side. And then they did, I think it was the third one where they're like, oh, he has like lungs, like he's actually like a man, like he could walk on land. We don't have to keep him trapped here. So they like surgically alter him, but then like something goes wrong and he's like dying slowly. It gets hardcore.
Weird.
But that's all our primary monsters. And again, like I was saying, there's a bunch of like there's a horror movie called The Black Cat, which was Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi.
What was that?
Goose, honk.
Oh, okay.
Goose. There's a bunch of movies like Son of Frankenstein, Son of Dracula. Son of Dracula was actually played by Lon Chaney Jr. And I started watching it, and then I realized it's terrible. It's not because so the like carriage with his like luggage shows up, and it says like Alucard down the side, and there's a guy who's like Dracul. What are you looking at? Nothing. Just kind of noticing things, and then like. The next scene, you like see Lon Chaney Jr. in like the cloak with like the fangs. You're like, y'all aren't wasting any time. Like we're just like getting into it. Like we're not even gonna pace it. Okay, fine. I really feel the need to watch it anymore. I was wondering.
Not even gonna wait for the village people to tell me not to go to Castle Dracula. Just getting right into it. All right.
Like I was expecting it to be one of those like the modern, like how you would do it nowadays, where it's like there's a vampire among us, but who is it? And then you find out who's the son of Dracula.
Yeah.
Which those things never like fully hit you unless you have a really good actor, because you need somebody who can, because you've seen this character so much that the threat level is kind of like zero. So unless you have like a transformation scene where they turn into the threatening thing, or you have a really good actor who can just like flip the switch like that, those never really like pan out. Speaking of things that didn't pan out, the Dark Universe. So Universal announced they're going to do their big crossover universe thing. King Kong is a crossover universe with Godzilla. Avengers is huge. Justice League is there. And we're going to have ours.
Yeah.
And our first movie is going to be The Mummy, starring Tom Cruise.
Fuck.
And it's no, stop this. You have to end this now. Which they did.
That movie had that movie literally couldn't make up its mind on what the fuck was happening.
No, like it should have been the best way they could have done it was just to bring back Brendan Fraser and be like, have him be there when like a different weird thing happens. Yeah. Or especially if you did like a Frankenstein, because you would have been like, you can't bring things back from the dead. And he'll be like, yes, you can. You have no idea what you can do.
You can't bring things back from the dead. Oh, I beg to differ. We brought back and put down the same guy twice.
You'd really think you couldn't do it, but you can. You have to try.
You gotta believe in yourself.
Like
believe in yourself, Timmy. My name's John. Shut up, Timmy.
But bringing him in and then setting it in like, I don't know, what would the time jump be from there? the like 50s, 60s. Yeah, just make it the 50s, and then we can have them all like fight off alien invaders. Have it be War of the Worlds in New Jersey.
Yeah, sure. Let's do that.
Do you not want to add aliens? This is just like Indiana Jones.
This is exactly Indiana Jones.
But so what they did,
I'm too sober to give a thumbs up to that idea.
I think the problem with the Dark Universe thing they did was, well, the problem with it was they had it in their head and their first movie bombed. But they didn't want to stick with the bomb with Tom Cruise attached, who's a very expensive actor. You want somebody like Henry Cavill, who didn't really have a career before Superman, and then you use him to make your money. You don't have to pay him as much. But like Tom Cruise's movies all kind of look and feel the same. I think that's where their problem was. They didn't have a distinct look. And if you set it in like your 1940s, 1950s with Brendan Fraser, then you could have made it look different. Because if I see a sepia movie on screen, I'm going to be like, oh, it's one of those Universal things. It's sepia, has a monster. I know what I go in knowing what I'm playing with. That's how they could have done. They could have done it 100 different ways and made it good. But yeah, they just started off with just a movie that had no clue what it was doing. They forced in they tried to force a universe into existence. You can't really do that. Just let it like grow and be.
This wasn't like a Mummy movie. This was like a 2-hour-long trailer for the Dark Universe.
Yes. Because
they walk through that museum and it's like, oh, there's some vampire fangs. Oh, there's a swamp thing hand, and oh, there's all this shit, and it's like, oh gosh, it would sure be nice if we focused on the fucking mummy.
Yeah, maybe because the villain wasn't like villainy enough. I don't know. It was like they were like, in order to make a Dark Universe series, you'd have to make the monsters the heroes, and that doesn't really like go right. Like
it doesn't jive.
In the classic films,
the monsters have to be like they will seek to prolong their own existence at the expense of humanity. That's like how you write a monster.
Because Dracula got sunned, right? Sun on him, and that's what killed him. Frankenstein got burned in the windmill.
Burned in the windmill.
Mummy, I don't know how that ends. Invisible Man gets shot and then dies and then turns back visible. So now we have naked Claude Rains butt. Thank you, 40s. One of those, yep, that's what I've been watching this movie for.
Mm-hmm.
Bride of Frankenstein, I think the castle burns down again. Wolfman, he gets hit in the head with like a silver end of a nightstick. And because it's silver, that kills him. Creature, I forget how they kill the creature, but in all these movies the monsters die because they're a threat. So having a series where the monsters live would be weird.
It really would, unless it was like sort of they tried to kill the monsters and the monster like barely gets away, and then like eventually you build up to this like sort of all-encompassing movie where the monsters form like their own Legion of Doom. I'd watch that.
Yeah, I'd watch that. Or you could do it like, because in Frankenstein versus the Wolfman, they're fighting in an underground lab, and then like the dam bursts and it just like floods them out. You could do stuff like that where we don't see the bodies, but we're suspecting they're dead.
You leave it open to interpretation. So it's like, oh, it's like if we get funding, yeah, they survive. If we don't get funding, yeah, they died.
Yeah, that'd be a convenient way to do that.
It really would.
But yeah, Dark Universe is dead. It like they opened up with the Mummy, and then November of that year they like fired, or they didn't fire the guys, but the guys who were like the architects for it left. One of them's working on Fast and the Furious movies. One of them's working on something else.
Oh God, are they still making those?
I mean, there's money in the bank. You're not going to withdraw money from the bank?
I'm so done seeing Vin Diesel sweat.
Vin Diesel's a good person. You keep him in that job.
Vin Diesel's a good person, but I just don't need to see him sweat anymore. I don't need to see him in a V-neck. I don't need to see him sweat, and I don't need to see him do like one of those weird, overly manly handshakes where you like go up and like lock thumbs and flex your arms as hard as you fucking can, like you're trying to make the other guy's heart explode.
I like him.
You know that handshake I'm talking about.
I know exactly. It's the one from Commando, or is it Commando? It was like, you son of a, and they like clasp.
Yeah. It's the manly man shake. There's a handshake, and then there's a man shake.
Yeah. Universal Monsters, they work best as like the classic versions. They should have just brought the classic versions back. But
they really should have, but
it'd been cool.
I don't know. I think people try to. People think classic monsters and they think horror, but honestly, there's so many more nuanced themes in those stories. Like in the Frankenstein book, the monster doesn't die.
No,
Dr. Frankenstein dies, and neither of them die in a fire.
No, he's like, he dies of like exposure in the Arctic.
Yeah.
And then the monster is still like, you hear him like, ah, like out in the tundra.
No, because the monster is like cradling Dr. Frankenstein's dead body on the ship, and it's just like, I'm sorry, and then like one crewman sees, Frankenstein's monster cradling this dead body, and it's just like, bye, and then he just jumps off overboard, and he's fine because he's a reanimated corpse and he doesn't really have blood pumping, so whatever. Yeah.
Which,
well, okay. I mean, he does, but it's like cold doesn't get to him because
Yeah. So just to like my last thing, I just like honest conversation. The whole Frankenstein's monster thing. Where do you stand on that?
Oh, as to what to call him?
Yes.
I honestly think like if people say Frankenstein, they know what you're talking about because nobody really talks about Dr. Frankenstein.
Yep.
Although, if you really want to be facetious about it, or not facetious. Facetious is a whole
cheeky
other thing. If you really want to be pedantic about it, then you can say Frankenstein's monster or Adam or the creature. But if you say Frankenstein, we know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I stand with you. Like American vernacular, Americans like own their own language, or people own the language. So using Frankenstein as a shortcut to saying the monster, I think is perfectly reasonable. Because who gives a crap about Victor Frankenstein? Max Landis did. That movie's bad.
Yeah. I wanted so badly to like that movie too.
Right? And good.
It ain't.
All right, and that is it for me. So, Pete, let's start getting through these. Why do you love ugly Americans? Ugly. Why do you love ugly Americans, Pete?
I love it for the comedy and how they're able to take regular sort of slice of life situations and then just completely warp it into a really, really fucking weird perspective with no real right answer, but it's gonna be funny.
Yeah. And what do you hate about ugly Americans?
The thing I probably hate most is just... Okay, there's a couple episodes where the whole point of the episode seems to be like just people fucking with Mark.
Yeah.
It's funny at first, but then it's like, okay, I don't think you guys should have made a whole episode around this. I think this should have just been a running gag.
Yeah. I guess.
But, yeah. But, small potatoes.
And who is Ugly Americans a good fit for?
Let's see. If you like Aqua Teen Hunger Force or Super Jail or Rob Zombie music videos, or if you've ever been sitting there watching The Office and thought, this could use more demons, you'll probably get a kick out of Ugly Americans. Plus, there's only like 29 episodes in total, so, you can probably get the whole series knocked out in like an afternoon.
That's not bad.
No, it's not bad at all. Season 1 is actually available on Google Play. Tried to get Season 2, but it's not on there yet.
Sucks.
It does, but whatever. So, Bart, what do you love about Universal Monsters?
I love how much they've, like, soaked into, like, Halloween and modern American horror. Like, if you tell somebody, like, oh, I'm going to watch a mummy movie, they know what you're talking about. Like, everybody knows if I'm saying I've built a Frankenstein, everybody knows what I'm talking about. I love that. Like, just because these are icons of modern American horror. Like, to the point where Castlevania has mummies and a Frankenstein because Dracula's in it.
Nice.
Yeah. It's so good.
So, what do you hate about it?
They just don't know what to do with it. I mean, they have too big of plans for it. When, like, come on, man, just give me another Frankenstein movie. Or maybe because it's like classics, they're untouchable, but I mean, it worked with The Mummy, and that was a classic, so I think they could do it again. But they're also at that like bad point where, because it's borrowing from like public domain works, they can't really copyright it. Like, you could copyright The Mummy because that came out in like the 40s. I don't think that's based. It might be based on a book. I'm not sure. But Invisible Man's public domain. Dracula's
I
public
think
domain.
The Mummy should be public domain now because it's supposed to be 70 years
after the death of the creator.
So when did... I'll look into that later. Either way, like, Mummy should be public domain probably in the next decade or so.
Well, but the concept of a mummy is... So you could probably get away with that. But
yeah, that's true. But, like, the idea of, like, a curse bringing it back to life...
Yeah.
That's probably, like, copyrighted.
Yeah. But if they're going to bring it back, they shouldn't try to bring it back, because they brought back the Mummy, and it was, like... Sophie Butella, I think her name is, like, wearing like the like loose fitting clothing and like with weird Egyptian symbols on her face and all that. It's like, no. Give us what we know. Give us Bride of Frankenstein with the electro wig. Give us the Frankenstein with the square head. Like, stick with the icons and just they can make them all in black and white. And that would look awesome.
You remember that Disney Channel movie that was like a mummy?
No.
Good.
Okay, good.
It was bad.
But yeah.
It's so bad.
I just don't dig the like mishandling of it. It's like, just come on, man. Just throw out a couple movies. Just have fun with it. It shouldn't be that like serious of a thing. Like, just have fun with it.
The Universal monsters are, I believe, best described as like a labor of love.
Oh, yeah.
Like... They will shine their best when you really enjoy telling the story. And if you're just telling it for profit, then, you know what? Fucking Mummy's Curse. Now your penis is a scarab beetle. So enjoy that.
I ran off again.
Again! Fucking Bride Wars. Every time. Hog slamming out Elephant Lady.
Not this time.
Hog slam!
Go.
Okay. So, who are Universal Monsters a good fit for?
Everyone! From the classic movies you can watch when you're a teenager, to Hotel Transylvania, to, like, gosh, they're so good. Like, everyone's a fit for monster movies. Like, maybe like the old 40s films, maybe people who are like high school or older, because they are very slow because they're movies from the 40s, but man, when they're good, they're great. Watch the boat scene from Dracula when the like guys are like staring at the window and he's like slowly climbing out of his coffin on the deck, and Renfield's just tied up in a room screaming his head off. Oh, so good.
That is a good one.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that wraps it up for us this week.
I guess it does.
So we'd like to send a nice thank you to OK Go for the use of their song Here Goes Again off the album Oh No. You know them, you don't know us. Bart, what are you going to do next week?
I don't know. What is next week's letter? V?
V.
I wanted to do V. Remember the old series about the aliens from like the 1970s? And they remade it.
Oh, yeah.
And then they remade it with like Marina Baccarin. I wanted to watch that one, but I've got to actually get a hold of that one before I can do it.
Right on.
What about you, Pete? What are you doing?
I'm doing Venture Brothers.
Dang.
Are you upset for not thinking of it?
Yes, I am.
All right. So, thank you to everyone who listened to us ramble and try and make each other laugh with immature toilet humor, hog slamming that elephant lady.
Don't you pause for her laugh. You keep going.
All right. Catch you guys next week. Or in 2 months. I don't know anymore. All right. All right. Bye, everybody. And bye, Sponch.
Bye, Sponge.